Alright everyone, today short video, nothing too crazy. Most of you have already played around with affinities quite a bit. This is something that Plarion themselves actually just released with a bit of an infographic where they want to show exactly what the affinity benefits is when you're going up against somebody where you can hit, where you go up against a weak or a strong affinity. And I gotta say, I've been playing this game for a long time, and obviously even with just the arrow indicators that you have within arena fights or any other content, you know who to hit and who don't hit. And strong weak hits obviously always a bit of a factor there. But I gotta admit, after they released the graphic and I looked at it, I was not aware of some of the bonuses and disadvantages that you have depending on who you go up against. And since we haven't really talked about it specifically in the past, I thought we would do a short video, go over this real quickly, just so you guys also have a bit more of an idea, because it might actually impact how you are arranging some of your fights. So let's take a quick look at it. Now, I've been talking ever since the beginning of the channel and of the free-to-play account that it's kind of important that you add also more affinities to your lineup. Remember, initially we had a lot of magic affinity champions, and so it was kind of important that we would add then also some spirit and some force affinity, just so that we can break through dungeon stages where that's needed. And there's a pretty neat infographic from Plarium, as I said, where they go a bit over the details, because obviously you know that you can trigger those weak hits and those strong hits depending on who you're going up against, but I honestly wasn't really aware of all the implications of going up against a strong or weak affinity. So now, first of all, the basic triangle force affinity is strong against magic affinity is strong against spirit affinity is strong against force affinity, and obviously once you turn it around you have the weaknesses as well. So when we're talking about the affinity disadvantages, the interesting part for me personally was actually that your crit rate goes down as well. So you have a 20% damage nerf immediately, and you also lose 15% of your crit rate. Now that you have a 35% chance of a weak hit, that was something I definitely knew, and I've been playing Plarium, as I said, for years and always tried to pay attention to the affinities, but I had absolutely no idea that your crit rate is also going down, and that just by default you have 20% less damage. So that's actually pretty big already. Now, in case that you don't know, a weak hit means that you're dealing out 30% less damage to your opponent, and you cannot activate any skill-based debuffs, which is actually quite important when we're talking a lot about these auto attackers, these A1s that we had with all of those debuffs. Imagine, for example, when you're playing with High Cartoon and you're relying on her decreased speed on her A1, so if you land a weak hit, that is not going to be applied, and that can make a huge difference. So it's really important to add more and more affinity champions to your lineup. If you have all of your damage champions centered around one specific affinity, then you definitely need to add more so you can break through some Crest City stages, Doom Tower stages, and obviously for Arena as well. Now, the neutral aspect is obviously always Void. With Void, everything is always the same. There's no penalties, there's no disadvantages. It's just like straight down the line, super vanilla. But it becomes pretty interesting when we're talking about the strong affinities. So the one thing for me that is actually super interesting is that we have the crit rate increase. Now, the strong hit chance is obviously also important, because that means that you're dealing an additional 30% damage. But technically, depending on what you design your lineup for, you can actually get away with a lot less crit rate, and that was something that I absolutely did not know. So to me, until now, it was completely unknown that crit rate is affected as well. And if, let's say, for example, you're designing a team for Iron Twins or for any other specific dungeon that you want to farm. Maybe you are always farming Spider 24, Fire Knights 24, 25. That's always a specific affinity. So if you're designing an entire team only around this, and have a champion that is exclusively used in that setup, that automatically means that you can get away with sloppier gear, because you don't need that 100% crit rate any longer, and you can just get away with 85, which can make a huge difference. That can really make the difference of you running a crit rate glove on your champion or running a crit damage glove, and that is going to boost your damage significantly. So it's definitely something to pay a little bit more attention to when you're playing the game. Now, I think most people were already automatically leaning towards playing around the affinities. They have some really nice indicators, as I said before, through these arrows on the system, where you have either green, orange, or red when you attack an opponent. But if you have problems still running through certain PvE content, if you are struggling in Doom Tower, this is honestly something that you should pay a little bit more attention to. And you will most likely also see very heavily how it affects your clan boss damage, especially when you're just designing a team where you're barely getting a 2 key in somewhere. If you have an unfavorable affinity change on that clan boss, that usually immediately means that your damage is dropping significantly and might force you into a situation where you need a 3 key. So, long story short, this isn't an overwhelming video, this isn't going to blow anybody's mind, but I have to say that even after playing Raid for I don't know how many years, this is something that I had absolutely no idea of. So, well, I knew the basics, but I didn't know the crit rate how it affected crit rates. And I was also, to be honest with you, unaware of the skill-based debuffs on weak hits that this is not going to trigger. So if in the past you haven't stumbled across this, then you should definitely take a closer look. Maybe think a little bit about if it affects certain team compositions that you're currently running, if you should change something. So it's really a very basic idea that we're going over here, but I thought it was worth mentioning. We're going to have a couple of really nice events coming up. I also still owe you guys a video going over the 4-month progress of the account, and we're going to do that soon. I'm honestly trying to push this a little bit because there should be a Times to Ancients event coming up, and I saved up 77, 80 Ancients, and I really want to use those because I think I will probably going to get another legendary there. I might get a couple of good epics that will propel the account even further forward. So I'll probably release the 4-month video towards the end of the week. That at least would be the idea right now. Either way, short video today. Hope that you learned a little bit. I certainly did. And if you have any questions, then drop them into the comment section. If there's anything else that you want to point out, any tips that you personally have that you think new players should adhere to, then also write a comment there. Thanks a lot for watching today, and I'm going to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.